Hello, this is Ben Paris, Vice President of Operations for the Seminole County Chamber. You are about to hear Good Morning Seminole, our monthly signature event.
We have a fabulous group of panelists here this morning, and in order to lead our discussion, we have a moderator that is not me. And so with that, from Alan Bird and Associates, I would like to welcome Alan Bird to the stage to moderate our panel this morning.
All righty. Well, look at this. I've even got the questions printed up right here. Just to let you know, unfortunately, Bubba Kush could not make it today. He let us know he had an emergency come up and could not make it. But our panel is fantastic without Bubba Kush. I just got to say Bubba Kush as many times as possible. But let's go ahead and bring up our panel. Just come on up. We're just going to do a name introduction. Tedrow is shareholder with Lowndes, Drosdick, Doster, Kantor, and Reed. Matt Morgan, who is the new mayor of the city of Longwood. Chuck Blackton, who is the owner and founder of Verde Natural. Also, I'm just going to call him Lemon Man for the rest of the show. And Dr. Terel Newton, who is the medical director of Trulieve and Total Pain Relief LC. Come on up, guys. Let's give everybody a nice round of applause. Now, I will say the most popular question I've had when people ask, when I tell people I'm doing this morning is, do we have samples for everybody? We do not. That is illegal. Unless you have a card, then go see some of these folks afterwards. But anyways, so we're just going to start off. I'm going to start with you, Terel. Tell me, it's been 5 years since medical marijuana became legal in Florida. What is the most important thing about the industry that's happened since then? We're just going to go down the line. We're going to start with you. What's the one most important thing that's happened?
Hard to say if there's just one. So kind of an overview of where we are is, as of today, we have over 2,300 physicians, over 420 dispensaries, over 713,000 patients. Last week, over 213 million milligrams of THC were dispensed. Over 73,000 ounces of smokable marijuana were dispensed in just a 5-day period. So the state certainly has a robust appetite and need from a patient perspective, and we have grown very steadily, but we've had some stagnancy in terms of licensing, with only 22 companies who are licensed in the state of Florida. So I think it's important that there's been a lot of growth, but unfortunately there's still a lot of room to grow in terms of the way that we license.
Dr. Newton?
Yeah, I would say from the physician side, one of the biggest things is that we have a lot more opportunities for research. And if you ever have a chance to search pubmed.gov, it shows you all the research studies. There's literally an exponential increase in research studies. So every month, there's more information coming out on how to personalize a patient's experience with cannabis for chronic pain, weaning off opiates for cancer, epilepsy, and all the other qualifying conditions.
Now, Lemon, it's an interesting story because you're from here, but you left very shortly after high school to go capture this industry. You've done very well for yourself. Tell us, what do you think is the most important thing that you've seen over the last 5 years?
Well, I'm not really familiar with the Florida scene too much, but I think they've done a good job of pushing a lot of the little people out that deserve to be in here. There's enough money for everybody to make money, and I think the greed takes over, so I think they need to open the gates, and we need to go full rec here. We're behind. It's like a time travel from Denver, We're 10 years behind.
Wow. Matt, what about you?
I just think any situation, and I tell our residents in the city of Longwood this, we were one of the very first cities to welcome medical marijuana to our city, obviously, with the leadership at the time of then Mayor Ben Paris, look, I'm a 16-year recovered opioid addict. What in the world am I talking about medical marijuana for? Because let me tell you why. Had I been introduced to that early in my WWE career, I don't think I walked down that line in that lane of addiction to begin with and overdosing 7 different times on those painkillers. So everybody out there that gets to go to a Walgreens, that gets to go to a CVS and take the prescription to go get what they need to get help with whatever ailment that is, Crohn's disease, cancer, you name it, legit pain, right? Those people should be given the same opportunity to be able to go do the same dang thing when it comes to medical marijuana.
I agree.
There we go. So, Dr. Newton, we talked a little bit about that. What, there's probably some people in the audience who still look at this as quote-unquote medical marijuana, that it's just an excuse to legalize and get it. But that's not the case. Tell us a little bit about some of the medical aspects of it.
Yeah, so here in Florida, we have 10 qualifying conditions, and then we also have anything that's similar medically to those 10 conditions, terminal conditions, and chronic pain. And if you look at Florida and compare it to the surrounding states, they have very similar conditions. One very positive thing about what we have is we have the availability of low THC and high THC medicines. So it gives the physicians a lot of flexibility to really cater to what the patient needs. If you look at, and I know one of the topics we always, talk about is the surrounding states. So if you look at, Georgia's evolving program, they have a limit on how much medicine the patients can get. So they only have low THC and only in the form of an oil. In order to get the best results and to get the highest efficacy, we have to continue to allow patients to have the variety of routes of administration. So if they need something for immediate relief, they have the vapor pen or the flower, and they also have an extended release like a topical or a capsule or edible, something that will last longer. And so when you look at different research studies and compare to different states, if patients don't have flexibility in their medication, you're going to see that they're not going to do as well with their medication. But when the doctor and the physician, the doctor and the patient can come up with a treatment plan that gives the versatility for what they need, gives them the strength of medicine that they need and the options, then the outcomes tend to be much better.
One of the things that people talk about also, or common misperceptions, is crime associated with these. Matt, you and I were talking about some of the crime statistics in Longwood with this. How much crime is there with the dispensaries?
Literally 0.0%. And I called our chief of police, David Dowda, and our city manager, Clint Joelli, and I've checked in with them every one time per year ever since the advent of medical marijuana dispensaries in the city of Longwood, of incorporated Longwood. And so it's this misnomer, and I've heard people refer to as 434 in a negative connotation as the Green Mile. The city of Longwood. But the reason I point that out is because they're not saying it in a complimentary way. And I think of all those people that are in a world of pain, and I think of other addicts like myself out there that, again, could have been introduced to this earlier in their injury career, if you will. Wouldn't have had to go down that road to begin with. And we're proud in our city to be able to help serve everybody. And again, the people that are suffering right now, you see the numbers, right? You see what's going on with the opioid pandemic, right? It's no secret, right? You see our kids struggling with suicidal ideation, right? This stuff is put here for exactly just those types of things. So I also want to thank the good doctor here as well for being part of this panel, because this guy knows every single thing there is to know about this, and it's an honor to have you up here, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, with the opioid epidemic, more than 92,000 deaths, and also it's from a minority perspective, also affected African American men. There's been an increase by 30% over the last year during the pandemic. And over the last 5 years, increase in 140% in African American women with opioid-related deaths. It's one of those things that we have this tremendous opportunity to provide this medicine that has no known lethal dosage. So it has what we call a very wide therapeutic window. So the dose that is effective compared to the dose that will kill a patient, there's no dose that can kill a patient. There's no recorded deaths related to cannabis because there's no receptors in the brainstem. So this is a tremendous opportunity to impact the opioid epidemic, and also a tremendous opportunity to help patients dealing with terminal conditions as well. And we don't want to miss those opportunities. There's some legislation out there, limiting what patients can get, limiting the amount they can get in certain routes. And I don't think that that's the best thing to do for our patients.
Tara?
And I'll say, too, from a security perspective, so my day job is as a land use lawyer, so I get projects and title all over the state of Florida for a multitude of different uses, and that's how I got into the cannabis industry originally, was helping to open up dispensaries, and we didn't have friendly dispensaries or friendly jurisdictions like Longwood when I got into the industry in 2015. So most of the places we went, it was me versus the Sheriff's Association, me versus Moms Against Drugs, and folks who I think just didn't fully understand what the industry was going to be at that time. So it was really more of an educational campaign. So every time I'd walk in, everyone's like, the Barnum and Bailey Cannabis Circus is here, and she's gonna put on her show about weed. And I was like, yes, I am, right? And so we're going to open up a dispensary here too. So but part of the problem is that people thought there was going to be crime because we had such tight security requirements, which we still do. So it was like, well, if there's not going to be so much crime, then why do you have to do all of these 24-hour surveillance, and why do you have to have security guards? I'm like, the statutes require us to do that. We're not saying we need that, but that's statutory law, right? So there are built-in security requirements that are more robust than what I have seen in some pharmacies that carry controlled substances and even in some banks. And so for me, it's like, well, that's why we don't have these issues, because we have such high security required under statutory law, in which the dispensaries would implement by virtue of their business protocol anyway. But it kind of creates this circular logic. Well, you're probably going to have crime because you have so much security, so you need more security because you create crime, but we don't. So we have very few security incidents across the state, and I represent a multitude of the clients that operate in Florida, and we just don't see it. There's no one's going in and holding up a dispensary, right? Like, give me all your gummies, right? Like, that just like doesn't happen. So it's just.
I really want to see the newscast that has "Give me all your gummies" as the lead. So somebody's going to take that around. And I do have to give Tara credit for the subject line of the email the other day. Her Cinco de Marijuana was her line. So I stole it, plagiarized it, but I'm giving her credit now. Chuck, talk about what the differences are between what you see in Florida, as far as you've been in the dispensaries here, compared to what you're doing in Colorado, where it's 100% legal.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, we need to open up more shops there, obviously. There's got to be better quality of marijuana here. It sucks. The weed sucks here. Let's see. I'm trying to think what else.
Tell us how you really feel.
Yeah, it's the way it is, you know. But I just think that, you know, the cannabis world's going to end up with all the corporate businesses that are involved, and 50 states will go legal at one point. So it's going to come down to commercial cannabis and boutique cannabis. And genetics is what runs the cannabis world. Is your genetics that you grow. There's a million ways to grow: hydroponics, soil, aeroponics. We could go on and on. But your genetics are what rule what your product dictates. And you know, for a while here in Florida, you guys couldn't even buy flour. So it's kind of a step up to seeing the dispensaries. You can actually go buy raw flour instead of a vape pen.
Tell us describe your dispensary in Colorado. What is it like?
I mean, it's you know, pretty small spot. But we've got a 10,000-foot grow, so that's always a problem. It's agriculture, so we always run into issues. And we process all our own hash, all our own flour. We don't buy any wholesale from anybody. The only thing we would outsource would be our edibles. So we just try to keep it boutique, and we've got a good reputation. I opened it up in 2009, so it's been, 13 years now. So thank God the feds haven't knocked on the door or anything like that.
So for those of us in the room who have not been to a dispensary, describe the Florida dispensaries. One of you guys, whoever's been in one.
You can eat off them, legitimately. If you don't believe me, again, being a total homer here for Longwood, go on 434 and check out Move. That's spelled M-U-V. I'm dead serious. Take a tour. You'll be very shocked and surprised for those of you who've never been inside of a dispensary before, especially to your friends that want to continue to cast judgment negatively on these places. There is nothing, especially in Longwood, again, that has been able to help us as far as redevelopment goes. Where Move sits right now used to sit a pile of rubble that used to one time have a beat-up old Taco Bell. Very abandoned parking lot, right? Very desolate area. They've completely flip-flopped and turned that around. So have all the other medical marijuana dispensaries on 434 there. They've all replaced a one-time desolate and beaten down property. So it's very, very important for also economical purposes in the city of Longwood, and we're very proud of them.
Yeah, and I want to mention, if you walk into any Trulieve location, when you walk in, you'll be in the lobby. We also have education rooms where our consultants can meet with patients to go over the different medications. We have a showroom. There's also pictures online on our website. And when you look in the showroom, it basically looks like you're at a Tiffany store. So you see everything in glass cases. It's very professional. There's not, big nothing against Colorado, but there's not like, this big buckets of flour and everything when you first walk in. So there's many varieties of options for the patients of how they can take their medication. And it's a very, like you said, it's a very clean environment. All that even seen some of the other dispensaries as well. I've never seen anything kind of out of line or dirty or anything like that. But if you come into any location, any of our locations, which we have over 100 in the state of Florida, you'll see a very professional, clean environment. It will even look cleaner than most pharmacies.
Yes.
So, patients enjoy coming into our centers here.
And from a real estate perspective too, and I appreciate you bringing up the revitalization and rehabilitation of kind of dilapidated properties. One of the biggest issues my clients run into is that we actually put so much money into our stores that we are always tripping the 51% assessed value threshold, which requires us to bring the whole site up to code. And I'm like, we put too much money in. And my client's like, wait, they want us to put less money into the property, the city or the county does, so that we don't have to bring it up to code. I'm like, yeah, we're putting way too much money. Over $1 million on average is put into each of the dispensaries just to rehabilitate it and to bring it up to the standards of the different types of operators in the state. So it is a very different experience than I think what you see in a lot of different jurisdictions in other states. Not to say that there's anything wrong with the way the other states operate, but I think Florida has had a pretty strict control. That's also by virtue of the Office of Medical Marijuana Use having control over all advertising and signage for dispensaries in the state of Florida. And some of the local governments that we had to fight against in the beginning, not Longwood obviously, wanted to restrict what we could say on our signs. So there was one jurisdiction that passed a flagrantly unconstitutional ordinance that said you cannot say about 50 different words if you were a cannabis company in your sign. They're like, you can't say magic, wacky tobacco, smoke. I was like, okay, Reefer Madness called and they want your logic back because we're not putting up wacky tobacco dispensary and Mary Jane dispensary. This is bizarre. But some places were like, are you gonna put cannabis in your name? I was like, yes. Did you want us to put question mark? You know what I mean? Like a line, fill in the blank dispensary, so people don't know, come inside and find out. You know what I mean? We're like, no, we're gonna put name of company cannabis dispensary. So we had to work through some of the kinks of the stereotypes with the industry. But yeah, from a real estate perspective, we typically look for Class A real estate, put a lot of money into those sites. And unfortunately for my clients, fortunately for sellers and landlords, cannabis companies are often paying far above market value just for the opportunity to transact business given the federal illegality and the fact that most banks won't take our money and most landlords or sellers don't want to take the risk of taking our money either. So there's a bit of an upcharge that comes along with it.
Well, let's talk about that because, one of the things to grow the industry, to build the industry, there's still an awful lot of restrictions, not just from the state government, but from the federal government. One of the things, so if you are a medical marijuana card holder and you want to take your medicine across state lines to another state that has full legalization, so you want to take your gummy from Florida to Colorado, you are committing a crime, unbeknownst, even though this is legal medicine, whereas if you took your opioid, you wouldn't be punished for that. So what are some of the regulations out there that you say have to be get rid of today? We'll start with you, Terel. Let's just go down the line. Anything that you've seen?
I mean, state reciprocity would make a lot of sense, right? That if you are a medical patient, you should be able to bring your medicine across state lines without flagrantly violating federal law. Not to say that TSA is searching bags for cannabis anymore, not to say that you're probably going to get caught, but it's a risk, and it's black letter law that you would be in violation of federal law if you do transport across state lines. So that's a big issue, because all the time, our hospitality clients that we represent here in Orlando will call and say, we have so many of our tourists who ask, can we bring cannabis for our child when we come on a 2-week vacation to Disney who has epilepsy and we need to bring it with us? And, the hotel has to say no. They might hopefully bring it anyway, for the sake of their child, but that's one of the issues that we deal with. So I think that first and foremost needs to change, and then second, we need to have federal banking regulation. I mean, there's a whole lot of stuff that needs to change, but I don't have enough time. But federal banking regulations need to change so that we can have normal financial services for these companies, especially because a lot of these cannabis companies are paying so much in taxes. In some states, you pay up to 70% because you don't have under 280E in the IRS code. There's no deductions for normal business expenses. So there's just a lot of red tape. And by the way, I don't know of any meth labs that pay their taxes, right? But cannabis companies do, and yet we still get penalized for paying our taxes, basically. So there's just a lot of that we need to kind of move forward on.
Dr. Newton?
Yeah, I think we need more flexibility and more freedom of choice. You know, if we look at, it's about 18 states that have adult use now. And I'd like to call it adult use because it's not all about recreational. It's not all about taking it only as an alternative to alcohol. What about people that want to take it for health reasons, but they don't have a qualifying conditions? What if they have a strong family history of cancer, but they want to take it to prevent cancer, not necessarily treat it, so they wouldn't necessarily qualify? So I think, you know, having more flexibility, having more options, and different ways to use the medication, I think that, to me, that's one of the bigger issues that we need to address.
Chuck?
Yeah, the banking issue is definitely a big deal. That's not fun to pay your taxes at the end of the year. Another thing, too, I hate that they don't let felons in the weed industry if you got clipped for weed back in the day. And I don't think that's fair. I think also, just like the medical cards here in Florida, people pay a lot of money, and it's not affordable for the average person. I hate to bring that up, but they've really made it complicated. You know, in Colorado, you get a medical card, it's good for a year, and you just renew it. Here, it's like a prescription. It's run like a pharmacy. Yeah?
Yeah.
So, anyway.
Matt?
I would like to echo what she said earlier as far as the federal guidelines go, as far as being able to travel with it. Again, I think of my nonverbal autistic son, for example, that right now has a very heavy regimen of CBD/CBG oil. It breaks his blood-brain barrier, and we've had great results. It comes from the cannabinoid plant, obviously, but as far as the actual those with ailments want to be able to go to a different state and not be able to do it with their medicine. Again, wrestle for WWE, guys. I was able to go wherever I wanted to with those magic painkillers of mine that I was very addicted to back in the day. I can go to any country with them. Nobody ever stopped me. But yet we're doing this with something that's helping people with cancer. Again, Crohn's disease, that's ridiculous.
So let's go rapid fire. Start with you, Chuck. When will Florida be fully legal?
I have no idea.
Ask Jason.
Not putting you on the spot or anything, Senator. Can I ask really quick on the doctor a question here? I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but something I've always been interested in. So overall, the legalization of marijuana in general, right? One of the fears is our kids. A 15 or 16-year-old getting behind the wheel of a vehicle, let's say. What would be your answer to that? Would you treat it something like we do with age, with alcohol? What would you do with it? If it's fully legal one day, which I believe here in the state of Florida it will be, what do you think of that?
Yeah. So, you know, that definitely is a concern, you know, and as far as what we can do, what we've done in Florida now is, for example, our edibles can't be appealing to children. That's one example of what we're doing currently. But as far as regulating it like we regulate alcohol, I think that would be one of the bigger policies that we could have as a layer of protection. And then, you know, the other part is going to be what is done as far as like community support and education to prevent that from happening as well. And so that is something I think is a burden that goes on to dispensaries, you know, as far as us, you know, helping our community educators with that. And then also, you know, just being, you know, involved in being able to be a resource. We, at our dispensary, you don't necessarily have to be a patient to come in and get educated. You know, the unfortunate thing about, you know, the retail products is they're not tested. So even if someone gets a CBD product that's retail, it can have THC in it.
Yes.
You know, and I had a patient that took a CBD. Now this is I mean, I don't know exactly where this actually came from, but it was a CBD gummy that the patient was given, and he took that and he went unconscious and he stopped breathing. So it was either some type of fentanyl, you know, or there's another version of fentanyl that's actually 100 times stronger called carfentanil, something similar to that was in a gummy. And so we really need to educate kids and teenagers that you can't take anything into your body that somebody just gives you, because it could be deadly.
Thank you, Doc.
So let's go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, one of the interesting parts in the industry about the regulation that, we can't have it be appealing to children. I'm like, where do we draw that line of what is and is not appealing to children? Like, kids put batteries in their mouth, right? Like, I mean, I just, don't know. Right? Like, I'm like, short of, Sesame Street having Elmo smoking a joint, I'm not sure, we just have to, make sure we don't have the Joe Cool of marijuana, because we don't want, we don't want to have kids, because it can cause impairment, right? Obviously, there can be some impairing side effects. We don't want you driving behind the wheel necessarily, unless you understand how your body can react to those things. But with regards to the CBD gummy issue, keep in mind with how much hemp CBD products that are put on the shelves now, that those are not coming from medical marijuana dispensaries. So the hemp industry is regulated completely different on a state level. It's regulated completely differently on a federal level. And so there are a lot of products that come out that are CBD products that even the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, and having done testing, has shown that there's lead, arsenic, and other toxic chemicals in those. And that's because not all of them are regulated. So there's, unfortunately, given how new that industry, there's a lot of onus on the customer to do their due diligence before they purchase hemp CBD products at gas stations or wherever else, to make sure that it's actually properly labeled. Is there a QR code? Can you go on it and find where it was sourced? And is there a sample of what that certificate of analysis was, showing how much THC, CBD, or chemical or toxic levels of any types of minerals were in that product? So those are the things that everybody needs to be aware of for your own safety in taking products outside of a medical cannabis dispensary, because a lot of them just aren't verified yet, unfortunately, but the state is doing a very good job of trying to pull some bad things off of the shelf. Another warning, taking CBD products that do not come from medical cannabis can put THC in your system that can have you fail a drug test at work. And so you need to be very sure whether your employer's employment policies, or if you're an employer, what your employee policies are with regards to the consumption of CBD products derived from hemp or medical cannabis, because those can cause a lot of issues with employment.
I know we've probably got a lot of folks wanting to ask some questions, so we're going to ask questions in just a minute. So start thinking of it, catch my eye, and I'll call on you. But Dr. Newton, you wanted to say something else?
Yes, every product from a Florida licensed dispensary is required to have something called a certificate of lab analysis. So that's confirming the actual package is accurate as to the contents of the amount of THC, CBD, but also that the product is free of heavy metals, is free of arsenic, is free of microorganisms as well.
One thing, and again, I'm assuming some people do not know what we're talking about as far as the regulation of what gummies look like. Somebody talk about what gummies look like in Florida and then what they look like in Colorado.
Yeah, so it'll be basically an off-white colored round soft, delicious.
In Colorado, they look
5 to
delicious.
10 milligram THC product that the patient will take and feel much better, feel happy, they'll feel pain-free, they'll feel anxiety-free. I have traveled to Colorado actually a few weeks ago to speak at a hemp conference. And I did stop to about 3 dispensaries just to do some research and see what the adult use was all about. And they have some things that look like they're meant to be fun. They have packages that has bright colors. They have different products, different options. They have, different foods, food items. You would have to have Chuck to speak to as far as like the regulatory side of that.
Yeah, everything's child-proof, so it's not like they're just going to open it up if somebody leaves it, but they probably can, because kids can get things open better than we can with child-proof. But yeah, it just looks like candy bars, nice packaging, everything's got all the directions on there, the milligrams, same in Florida, we've got to follow all this protocol. The only thing is when you eat one, don't eat one 10 minutes later because it's not working, because it digests through your body. Because once you're in, there's no turning it off.
So in Florida, our doses have to be they can't be more than 10 milligrams. So if you eat a chocolate bar, it may be something that divides into 10 pieces. So there's a total of 100 milligrams, but you would only want to take 1 or 2 pieces at a time.
Any questions? I have a question in the back for Bridget. Hold on one second. We've got a microphone coming because we are recording this for our I know, but we're recording this for our podcast, so everybody can come back and listen to this again in
Good
about a couple of
morning,
weeks.
and thank you all for coming. I am a veteran, and at the VA, because I have chronic pain from my service in my back. And they used to give us hydrocodone, and then they moved down to tramadol. And now, you know, I get an injection here or there, but they're 50-50 pretty much. You know, sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. So I've moved on. I have my medical marijuana card. And one thing I ran into that is also an issue is that you need to renew your you need to renew with your doctor every 9 months, I think.
7.
Thank you. People know. People know.
7, right?
Every 7 months.
7, yeah.
But the card, every 6, forgive me, but the card needs to be renewed every year. So that's a little bit, if we could get that on the same page, that's just another issue because, you know, I went to go pick up from the little drive-through, I think it's at Move or something like that. And
Or Trulieve.
it
We have
really-
Trulieve up here, so we'll talk Trulieve.
Truly, yes. And literally, I was like, they're like, well, it's run out. And I'm like, that's not possible. So, but if you could work on that, that would be greatly appreciated.
So let's talk about that for a minute, because why are there all these, you know, yes, you have to go see your doctor every 7 months or 6 months or something. I think it's 7 months. You have to pay $150, $170 just to get your card, register with the government, all that good stuff. Why do we have these regulations in place? Let's start with Dr. Newman.
Yeah, well, I just want to say most states are either on a 1 or 2 year cycle. You know, just as far as the duration of the recommendation, I agree with you. That it should be something that we can update at some point or we can extend it. But, you know, I will say, however, you know, when the program was first starting, we, you know, had to have some type of follow-up with the patient, see how they're doing, you know, make sure they're not overtaking their medication. There is a very rare thing called a cannabis use disorder. It's there's a much lower rate of that compared to, you know, being addicted to opiates or having a high tolerance for opiates. But those are some of the reasons that, you know, as far as medically, that might have gone into that decision. But hopefully, as we, you know, gain more experience, the physicians become, you know, better at their guidance for the patients, and the patients become more experienced in knowing what works best for them. Hopefully, at some point, we will have that where we can expand the duration of the recommendations.
Do you have another question out here? I know we've got one there, and then we've got over here, and then there. Now, hopefully, we'll be able to get to you, but I'm not sure. So really quick on your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan, for sharing your story. My mother is currently 70 years old, is being prescribed 28 different medications. One of them is a morphine pill that she takes twice a day, coming from what is called a pain management facility. Anybody that is addicted for 20 years like that, they ruin birthdays, holidays. My father's retirement of traveling the entire world is gone because he has to take care of her. I bring up medical marijuana to her, and she is not even having it. She's conditioned, okay? Our population's been conditioned. How are we going to recondition the population when we're going up against such powerful pharmaceutical companies that are, you know, I mean, you watch TV, and there's people horseback riding and picking strawberries because they're on their pills, and you guys can't even put, you know, a nice package together in a window. So how are we going to recondition the population to understand what we've been doing for the last 50 years is completely wrong?
Matt?
Conversations just like this. I'm an elected official, right? I'm sure somebody's going to smack me with this in re-election attempts. I hope they bring it. Because at the end of the day, this is something that our future is going towards more and more. And I have the proof in my own family, with my own household, with myself as a 16-year recovered addict as well. So I have real experience with this. It's not hyperbole, it's not me exaggerating, it's not me guesstimating. I've witnessed it with my own eyeballs, and again, my own family, but more importantly, our own community. And thank you for sharing that story. I sincerely appreciate that.
Anyone else?
Yeah, you know, I would say maybe a starting point would be to attend some of her doctor visits with her and maybe bring that up in the conversation, see if the physician will come out and do the recommendation, or at least start that conversation with you. And maybe that's something that they can continue to see if there is a way that, you know, she could start in a program and hopefully wean down on that morphine.
Over here.
Thank you guys for coming and presenting. My question was, I wanted to circle back to like the heavy metal content, and is it more prominent in certain products in between CBD or marijuana versus edibles or flower or vape pens?
I mean, presumably every product should be safe for human consumption that's put on the shelves and sold at retail in the state of Florida. But if you're buying things online and we don't know where they're actually being sourced, not every state regulates hemp CBD products the same as well. So when you buy those things or ship them in the state, they might not have the same testing standards where that product's being created versus what's being shipped into the state of Florida, which has some of the more stringent hemp regulation standards. So I don't think it's as granular as the type of product that carries more heavy metals, but the cannabis plant is phytoremedial, which means it's gonna suck up what's, and the hemp plant too sucks up what's in the dirt, which is great, in some instances if it's very good soil, but then also if you're growing something on toxic soil, that's going to be in the plant. So we hope that there's a remediation process where you can take those things out of the end, before it gets into an end product form. But again, it's just consumer awareness. You need to know what you're putting in your body. You need to make sure it's coming from a verified source, and it has that certificate of analysis attached to it that proves it's safe for human consumption.
Nathaniel, you got somebody back there, and then we've got one more over here, so we're going to go really quick because we're trying to get everybody out by 9.
I'm going to move back because I have an autoimmune disorder and I'm on medical cannabis for it. So actually what I'm going to give you is a quick testimonial. My name is Erin. I'm with Canna MD. We're a large medical cannabis physician group. You come see me to get your card, basically, as we discuss dispensaries and everything else. At the age of 12, I was diagnosed with juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. I was hospitalized 3 times. And I was in West Palm Beach, Florida. I was a really sick kid. They thought I had lupus. By the 3rd hospitalization, they sent me to the University of Michigan Children's Hospital because they had no idea what was wrong with me. And it ended up, I have JRA. I am 58 years old. I still have JRA from head to toe. I did not outgrow it. I'm on no anti-inflammatories. I'm on no pain medications. I don't do any injections. Those are hit or miss. And I'm a medical gal who used to work in ortho. There is nothing like medical cannabis. And you're right, we start the discussion by having a room like this and talking about it. I go out and I talk to physicians. I'm a physician liaison, and you would not believe the stigma I am up against as a professional medical rep of 20 years going in and talking about medical cannabis. And I say to them, I am medical cannabis. This is why I can move. If you saw my x-rays, I look like a 90-year-old woman, honest to goodness. 58, 2 Advil at night, and medical cannabis at night, and that's it. And God bless the chamber for having this conversation today. Thank you. And if you need your card, come see me, okay?
That would be a great way to close, but I promised him he would get his question in. So Nathaniel, come on up here with the black hat on, raise that, and that'll be the last question. So make it really quick, and maybe we can get one last thing.
Hi, I'm a 15-year paramedic here in the county. Probably shouldn't be here in my uniform, but I just got off shift, so I think I'd take the paperwork anyways. So I got a question. I know that the black market is plentiful out there, and it continues to grow and everything. Is there any studies on the legalization and what it does to the black market, and does it reduce it? Does it stop the we don't know what's coming into these, our kids getting in, and I run on calls of people that aren't getting the medical grade, they're getting the black market stuff, and they don't know what it is, and they're freaking out going into the hospital, and the people that are on the medical grade are not doing that, from my perspective. So I don't know if you've seen anything like that.
Chuck, man, who wants to take that one? Chuck, maybe?
I mean, yeah, definitely. It's nice that everything's tested these days, and we got to go through all the protocols. But the black market's always going to thrive, especially if the prices are higher in these dispensaries, and when we go back on the doctor's visits and all that. Who wants to pay the taxes? So if the businesses get too greedy, then it's always going to exist. And until all 50 states are legal, it's going to be here. It's the way it is.
And one of the other things to point out is there's not high statistics in it yet, and I say the word yet, because we still have isotonitazine that's about to be entered in our market, unfortunately, on the streets, which is stronger than fentanyl and carfentanil. But the street marijuana that could be sold, let's say the street pot, let's say, those could potentially come in bags that have that came from tables that have fentanyl that had been mixed in other painkillers and things of the like. So the more we can get an opportunity to be able to trust these sources that we have and get them regulated and things and have more studies done on it, the safer it will eventually be, obviously. And it's why we got to continue these types of conversations.
That's a great question. Anybody else? All right, with that, I'm going to bring it back up to Jason. Guys, give these folks a nice round of applause. Hope you all learned something new today.
Well done. I just want to thank the panel. It's hard to evoke a hockey reference here, but I will do it. One of the greatest of all time to ever play the game was Wayne Gretzky, and when asked why, he said, because I never went to where the puck was, I went to where the puck was going to be. And I hope with this panel this morning, you figure out that the Chamber is trying to bring you programming about where the puck is going to be. And so I can't thank you all enough for being here and all your insights as to where we have been, where we are today, and maybe where we are going with what the future of this could be. Thank you all very much. If you could give them another round of applause, please.
Thanks for listening. To learn more about the Seminole County Chamber, please visit seminolebusiness.org or check us out on all social media at the Seminole Chamber.